We're starting today's video off high above Los Angeles and Hollywood on Mulholland Drive. Right now, I'm at an overlook. You can see LA way off in the distance, the buildings. That highway is Highway 101, or the 101. You can also see Hollywood. And then there's the Hollywood Bowl. Something else, right? This overlook is a really nice stone structure. It kind of feels like I'm on top of a castle. There's a few different signs or plaques that talk about what you're looking at up here. This one here talks about the sign in the city. And then off in the distance, it's kind of obstructed by this bush. You can see the Hollywood sign right up there. Looking at LA and Hollywood from a different angle, and this plaque, it says, "The city that dreams built, overlooking it all." And here's the third and final plaque talking about the Hollywood Bowl, with the Hollywood Bowl in the background. There truly is so much to see here in Hollywood that you can spend weeks driving the many streets into the Hollywood Hills, looking at what's there now. And if you know where to look, you can find things that once were. Well, today we're going to be talking about Norman Bates, Anthony Perkins. More importantly, trying to track down where his final resting place is, or was. It gets a bit confusing. There's not much that's known about it, but I'm going to tell you what I know, and we're going to go on an adventure to the Bates Motel.
Wherever I come, bad luck just comes my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always coming my way.
The reason we're starting this video off here at this overlook on Mulholland is because it gives you a very good look down into the Hollywood Hills from above. Now, right off of Mulholland Drive is a street by the name of Seattle. And that is where Anthony Perkins lived and ultimately died in 1992. He died September 12th, 1992 at the age of 60 from AIDS-related pneumonia.
AIDS has claimed another Hollywood star, Anthony Perkins. Perkins, who was 60 years old, did not discuss his disease publicly. He died in his Hollywood home this weekend with his wife and 2 sons by his side.
The world discovered Perkins in 1960 when Alfred Hitchcock focused in on the psychological suggestiveness Perkins captured with his shifting eyes and perfect, hesitant timing.
But I don't really know anything about birds. My hobby is stuffing things.
Terrifying everyone in the instant classic Psycho. Of the psychotic Norman Bates, Perkins said, "I always liked Norman, but he came to dominate my life, and I really resented that." The son of an actor, Perkins played various types on the stage between movies. But after he won acclaim in the play Equus in 1975, portraying a troubled psychiatrist, the psychotic image finally won over his acting for good. In the last 10 years, he made Psycho 2, 3, and 4. But the real-life Perkins, seen here with his 2 sons, left behind a different sort of message. A week before he died, he wrote, "There are many who believe AIDS is God's vengeance, but I believe it was sent to teach people how to love and understand and have compassion for each other."
One of the things that we love to do here at the Grimm Life Collective is visit famous graves. And moving here, one of the first things I did was try to track down the final resting place of Norman Bates himself, Anthony Perkins. Well, it turns out Tony Perkins was not buried. He was cremated and his ashes were given to family and friend, more importantly at his house, which was on Seattle Drive. Now, there's a rumor, a story here in Hollywood that what the family did, they took his urn, and I'm not sure if they placed it or they embedded it in the garden of the house, like in the terrace. And again, it's rumors. I'm not sure if there's a plaque or if the urn says, "Don't fence me in." When the family moved, we're going to talk about his family, Anthony Perkins' family, in just a little bit, but whenever they moved, the story of his urn stops there. Nobody knows if it was taken or if it's still there. That's what we're going to try to find out today. Now, if you love Hollywood history as much as we do, then you might know that Woodrow Wilson Drive here in the Hollywood Hills is one of the most secluded streets where you'll find some celebrity homes. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, Tarantino once had a house here on Woodrow Wilson. Well, there is an intersection where it crosses Seattle Drive, and that is where Anthony Perkins once lived. One of the things you learn very quickly living here in Hollywood is parking is a bit tricky. You really can't park anywhere, especially here up in the Hollywood Hills where the streets are pretty narrow. You kind of have to park and hike, get a little exercise in. Now this road right here is Seattle Drive. It is a dead end. It goes up probably about like maybe, I don't know, a half a mile, and then there's a turnaround and you got to come right back down. But up towards the top, on the right-hand side, is where we're heading today. Now, truth be told, this video telling the story of the final resting place of Anthony Perkins has been on my list of things to do for quite some time. And I've come up here respectfully, knocked on the door, rang the doorbell. They have a little doorbell, everybody has doorbells, and wanted to talk to somebody about the history of the property. But nobody's ever really been home, or nobody's really answered the door. I'm gonna try it one last time today. And regardless, I'm still gonna tell the story respectfully from the street, public property, and just enjoy the day. Because it's so hot, I can hear the hum of air conditioners off in the distance. But this is it. Right behind this white wall is 2840 Seattle Drive. You really can't see much of the house today. But this is where Anthony Perkins lived and died, and where supposedly his ashes are his final resting place. It's really hard to tell if any kind of construction or remodeling has taken place here on the property since Tony Perkins lived here. But I will say this, he definitely didn't live in a creepy old mansion up on the hill. I went up to the front door again and rang the doorbell. Still have not been able to talk to the owner of the house. Have absolutely no way of knowing if Anthony Perkins' ashes are still here on property in the back garden. I've reached out to his two sons. They're still alive. One's a musician and the other one's a director. I mean, they do all kinds of other things, but have not heard back from them either. I just want to be able to talk to somebody and see if we can figure out where Anthony Perkins, his ashes are. Even though we can't get any confirmation that his ashes are still here on property or that they were here, we know that he did live here for about 20 years, I think it was. And all I found in doing research was a little blurb, a little paragraph talking about his ashes being in the back garden on a terrace. So I'm gonna walk up and down the streets and see if I can see any part of the backyard. Now, like I said, this property's pretty big. And a little further up the street, there's a guest house and a garage. And it looks a little bit different from what I can see of the main house. I don't know if this is original or if this was built on sometime after. But it's definitely a nice little spot. I haven't seen a car drive by, not once. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time lingering here because it is private property. But just behind the garage and the guest house, you can see that portion of the house. See how it's different? So somewhere back there in this woods at one point there was a garden. And I've read two different paragraphs. It's the same paragraph, different words. One says it was a garden, the other one says it was a terrace. But it's definitely back here at some point. I would really like to know. I just want to be able to walk back there and see. Just walk through the garden.
As Hitch was so fond of saying on the set of that picture, "Don't worry, Tony, it's only a movie." The knife never actually touches her body, but this guy can make an audience believe anything. I've been taking the rap for that sequence for 20 years now, but that's not me behind the curtain. I was in New York that day rehearsing a Broadway show. And that scene, the credit for that act belongs to my stand-in, Bert, and from now on, he can take the rap for it. Okay.
We now find ourselves in Hollywood Forever Cemetery, visiting the grave of Sir Alfred Hitchcock. Oh, I'm lying, he's not buried here. Somebody completely different, but it's still pretty cool that his name, well, the last name Hitchcock is here in Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Just like Anthony Perkins, Hitchcock was cremated and his ashes were actually scattered at sea, the Pacific Ocean to be more precise. But I figured, you know what, for the rest of this video, let's make it about, the final resting place of those involved with the movie Psycho.
One of the great figures of motion pictures died today, Sir Alfred Hitchcock, who died in bed surrounded by his family at the age of 80. His passing was more serene than that of many of the characters in his 53 films, many of whom were dispatched with ingenious horror. David Burrington has more.
In 50 years of making pictures, he became a legend worldwide as a master of suspense.
302, take one.
Action.
Critics rated him with Kafka, Dostoevsky, and Poe. Hitchcock was working on his 54th feature film when he died, here directing his last released picture, Family Plot. In every film, as a running gag, he made a brief appearance.
I do it as early as I can because I'm told, I don't know this, I'm told that an audience looks out for me. But I have another reason. I get in and out as quickly as I can so that I don't have to suffer the indignity of being an actor too long.
In Family Plot, his famous silhouette behind a closed door. And here, in one of his most successful films, The Birds. Often he wasn't so easy to spot. On the lower screen here, part of the crowd drawn to the discovery of a body. In what's perhaps his most famous film, Psycho, Hitchcock's appearance was easily missed, but few will forget the murder scene.
Now for this, we're going to take a moment, we're going to talk about the remake of Psycho, which I believe came out in 1998. Now we all know about the recent passing of Anne Heche. In the remake of Psycho, she was the one who played Marion Crane. Now, her final resting place is here at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, and different pictures that I saw online put her pretty much right next to Mickey Rooney. Well, kind of. Now, there's no nameplate for her yet, but from everything that we can find online, her final resting place is right here. At some point, they should have some sort of marker, maybe even a picture, and you can see up there towards the top of the center stone some different flowers. Well, what's left of them? It's starting to get really hot outside, so I'm ducking into the shade to continue talking about this. Now, when the crash happened, Jessica and I, we were out of town, and we watched a whole bunch of people, different vlogs, and people going to the site and taking video. We got back in town, we contemplated doing that, but we figured, let's just kind of wait and let things just kind of rest for a little bit. Everything was still pretty fresh. At some point, whenever they get her name on this stone here at the mausoleum, we'll come back, we'll do a piece properly on her.
This morning, friends and fans are remembering actress Anne Heche, a spokesperson announcing overnight she was taken off life support following a fiery car crash in L.A. a week ago that left her in a coma. Her family said the 53-year-old suffered a devastating injury that completely cut off oxygen to her brain. Heche remained on life support while doctors determined which of her organs could be harvested for donation. Video obtained by TMZ shows what appears to be Heche's car first crashing into a garage and speeding away, only to crash again into a house a short time later, setting off a fire that took over an hour to put out.
I also wanted to come over and check out the new crypts that they're building. From the concept art I saw online, it looks like they have these outdoor grass patios that you can be buried in, so I'm not really sure how they're going to do that. And I've never noticed this clock tower before. That is beautiful. Yeah, I never noticed that clock before. There's a little plaque here that says Tower Clock dedicated to May 30th, 1930. hidden amongst the ivy. Well, this is something new. I don't recall this gate being open last time we were in the area. Okay. What the heck are those? Interesting. For some reason, there's a bunch of flies down here in this corridor. This first one is marked President. So let's go ahead further down. They definitely look like they'd be coffins, right? This one here says Olam, Pita Light. But I don't think that they're coffins. Why would they be coffins? This one here says Solid Oak. Solid Birch. Dunfield. Tradition. They're just all lined up back here. There's more. I don't know what to make of this place. Why would they be storing them back here? Every time we do a video here at Hollywood Forever Cemetery, I feel like I'm always finding a different corridor or a different hallway, and each one I love even more than the first. This has to be my favorite. And aside from the creepy boxes and the flies flying around my head, this is just freaking gorgeous. It's a whole section, a whole wing that I have not seen before. Man. I definitely feel like I'm in a place that's usually closed off to the public. Untouched. Interesting. There's like these little family alcoves, family crypts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them right here. Different steps that go down the different corridors going this way or that way. It's like the labyrinth of the dead, which we also did a video on, like the city of the dead up in San Francisco. It was Colma, California. Here, look behind me. Kind of has a greenhouse kind of feel, doesn't it? You probably can't hear them, but off in the distance I'm hearing church bells, which means it's noon. I think this might be a dead end down here. Yep. Well, no, there's a hallway off to the left. And it's a door that's locked. This little hidden cemetery is something else. We've been here quite a few different times, different actors. And the very first thing that we always do when we come here is stop and say hello to Marilyn Monroe, which is exactly what we're going to do right now. And she's over here. I can already see it from here. There's a bunch of lipstick kisses on the stone. Right next to Hugh Hefner. Marilyn Monroe, 1926 to 1962. I could be wrong, but I think her plaque is new. I don't remember it being that shiny before. Somebody left flowers, and like I said, the lipstick kisses. There's even a few over here for Hugh Hefner as well.
Crowds of the curious are held back at a respectful distance from the private funeral that Joe DiMaggio and others arranged for Marilyn Monroe. After services in the chapel of Westwood Memorial Cemetery, in which eulogies and passages from the scripture were read, the casket is placed in the hearse to be taken to a crypt on the nearby Corridor of Memories. Only her half-sister, studio workers, and close friends of the late actress, among whom none were closer than DiMaggio and his young son, attend the services, which thereby have a dignity and simplicity denied many Hollywood rites. Final prayers are offered at the crypt. DiMaggio is strongly affected as he and the other handful of mourners depart and leave the earthly remains of Marilyn Monroe to the ultimate loneliness.
Now what we've actually come here for is the grave of Janet Leigh, her final resting place, which is about the center of your screen. There's a little walkway that goes back to the corner. That is where we're heading. This little hidden cemetery truly is a hidden gem in LA. So many different celebrities. Right over here in this corner, we got Florence Henderson from the Brady Bunch. We have Ray Bradbury. But of course, we are here for Janet Leigh, who played Marion Crane in Alfred Hitchcock's original movie, Psycho. Now, last time we were here, we came to pay our respects, and she's actually right next to actor Jack Klugman, I think that's how you say his last name, from the TV show The Odd Couple. He played Oscar. And I'm not a fan of The Odd Couple, so I didn't mention him, but a lot of you guys are, and I caught some shade for not pointing him out. So I'm gonna do that today. Right here. Janet Leigh Brandt, 1927 to 2004, and I'm sure you already know this, that she is Jamie Lee Curtis's mother. Right next to her husband, Robert. And then right next to them, Jack Klugman from The Odd Couple. Now I'm going to give you guys one better. Obviously, Jack Klugman from The Odd Couple, he played Oscar, but do you remember the name of his roommate? Felix Unger. Now Felix, he's not here, but you see the last name of this family here? Unger? How fitting. Driving for Hollywood, searching for the Walk of Fame star for Anthony Perkins. I noticed 3 familiar faces on the side of the road, like a street billboard. They look familiar? Oh, they should, because Hocus Pocus 2 is coming. Man, so stupidly excited for this. We're back, witches. We now find ourselves in the heart of Hollywood, in a sea of Walk of Fame stars. Now, Jessica and I, we are recent new members of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, which is awesome because it's because of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce that the Walk of Fame stars exist. And you guessed it, Anthony Perkins, his Walk of Fame star is right here by the Grimm's Chinese Theater. Now, to be honest, the Chinese Theater is a little further down, but if you type it in, you'll find him right away. Now, it took us a minute to find the star for Anthony Perkins, but there it is, the star of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Now, the trick was locating where the star for Britney Spears is, and it's pretty much right next door to it. It's a little chipped, isn't it? Let's get a closer look at it. A few different cracks. It makes sense, though, for Norman Bates. Now, when it comes to Anthony Perkins, sadly, the only thing I know him from is Hitchcock's Psycho, but the man has been in countless other movies and TV shows, as well as hosting an episode of Saturday Night Live, which was actually really freaking funny for the very first season. But aside from being an actor, he was also a musician. He's got a couple of different songs out, but he was also a bit of an activist. Anthony Perkins was very quiet about his personal life, but occasionally he did speak out when it came to topics that he felt strongly about. One of them being, and I find this very cool, there's a photo of Anthony Perkins marching with Martin Luther King Jr. during the Selma March, which was for African Americans' right to vote. Like, this photo, I had no idea that it existed, that he was a part of this. Walking the steps up to the Dolby Theater as if we're gonna get our own Oscar. This is pretty freaking wild. Love living in Hollywood. With that being said, from Hollywood, California, thank you for joining us on another Grimm adventure, this time telling the story of Anthony Perkins and trying to find the final resting place of Norman Bates himself.
Me?
Till next time,
Me?
happy Halloween.
Wherever I come, bad luck just comes my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. Bad luck's always coming my way.